The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week we are discussing ink. It's in your pens and on your paper, but how did that happen? Come along for the ride this week as we ask that exact question. Ink, how did that happen? All right. Welcome back for another episode. Thank you guys again for pressing play. It's been a turbulent couple of weeks. If anybody has been following, not that I've been posting anything, and that's maybe what you may have been following. I just kind of took a couple weeks off, and I couldn't really get too much done, get too much posted. And the truth is, I actually was ready to come back last week, and then my Wi-Fi went out, and I could not, for the life of me, get the episode that I recorded, which may or may not be out now. Not even this one, but the one before this one, the Dreams. I had done a while ago and was just trying to find a way to get it up, and I was just like, whatever, I'll get it done when I get it done, but now I'm back, and I'm trying to keep things going. I understand consistency is key when it comes to podcasts. That's what I'm really trying to, that's why I came back, because I wasn't gonna, honestly was thinking about stopping it, not because I don't like to do it. It's just like right now mentally it's really hard. And for a minute, I think I wasn't finding joy in it, but not because of this. It's just some other stuff going on in my life. But I'm really gonna try to keep it going, because I'm still interested. There's still so many other things out there that I want to know, how they happen, and I hope you guys do too. This is an interesting one. A little bit, we find out some things that I definitely did not know about ink, and like we find out why the first inks were black, and other things like that, and we find out some interesting things about gel pens too. So. Like I said, I'll try not to be missing too many more weeks. Who knows what the future holds? But back for now, and we have another episode. So without any further ado, here is ink and how it happened. Okay, so ink originated 4,500 years ago in the year 2500 BC, when it was created both by the Egyptians and the Chinese. And these inks, they were carbon-based. The Egyptians wrote with what are called reed pens, and they were hollowed stems of reeds like bamboo, and one end was cut into a point, and then it was filled at the top. With ink that would come out of the pointed end when it was squeezed. I couldn't find what they said the Chinese wrote with, but I would imagine it'd be something like that, because they had bamboo too. But early ink, like I said, was carbon-based. It was made from the soot of charcoal, meaning basically you let a fire burn out, and there you have the charcoal, which can be used for the pigment of the ink, which is why the first inks were black. And that is why black is the standard ink color, and it's pretty wild when you think about it. Like, what if the charcoal from the fires was like green or something, or purple, and the normal color would be like one of those colors? We just, think of black as the standard. And no one probably ever thinks of like why it's the standard, but the reality of it is like when humanity started, all we had was fire to write with, and so your first inks are black. Like I did not know that when I came into this. Quill pens come along around 600 AD and were used by early Europeans, and they used feathers from turkeys, swans. Is swan plural by itself? Swan. And geese while they were alive. Okay, so I looked it up. Swans, it is swans with an S. The geese thing threw me off. Because it's not gooses, it's geese. For whatever reason, I was just like, is it swan? But whatever. Then we're back to the quill pen. So then they would dry the feather so that none of the natural oils would interfere with the ink they were putting in it, basically getting all the animal parts out of it, so they could put the ink in there and not have it be, have any issues with how it wrote or anything like that. Then the end of the feather was sharpened and cut off, which creates a reservoir. That is what will be dipped into the ink wells before writing. And this is why people who write with these must continuously dip their quills because the reservoir is not very large. That's why when you see like on TV, when the older movies and they're writing, they're constantly dipping it back in over and over again because it's basically like it runs out very fast. Different types of things used to make ink, oak galls or oak apples were used to make ink in the medieval times, and they are made by the gall wasp. And the gall wasp, it burrows into the tree to breed. And the tree's reaction to that is to make an oak gall, which is like this like kind of ball looking, almost like a wooden ball looking sort of thing that grows on oak trees. As there's videos of it online. The oak gall is instrumental in some of the first waterproof inks, and it was in use from the 12th century till about to the 20th century. It was good because it was waterproof and long lasting. The long lasting effect comes from the acid in the oak gall, and it can easily last 300 to 400 years, if not more. But beyond that, the acid begins to eat into the paper, which is why historians are trying to save certain documents before the ink eats all the way through. And I do believe I read something that said like the Declaration of Independence, I believe even the Constitution was written with like an oak gall ink. So just an interesting fact there. To kind of break ink down a little bit, ink is comprised of two parts, the pigment and the vessel. As described earlier, the soot was the original pigment, and the original vessel would have been any kind of oil or animal fat they could find. Different natural gums and glues were tried as vessels as well. In the 1800s, ink became petroleum-based due to the introduction of petrol-based items to the market overall. And petroleum-based inks allowed for faster drying, and also they could have more vibrant colors. We'll talk about the drying times for some inks, I think, in a little bit. Let's see. Quill pens fell out of favor right around that same time in the early to mid 1800s because steel tubed pens came onto the market, and they functioned the same way as the quill, except it was longer lasting and cheaper. And so basically, it's just it's without the feather. You don't have to always have a bird around to make a pen. No surprise it took off, but yeah. So they were the exact same kind of technology, just steel tubed. And after those pens come the fountain pen, which was first patented in 1837 by a man named Petrarch Ponaru. Loving the alliteration, but that would not actually be made functional until a new patent was filed 50 years later by Louis Edson Waterman. Slightly, if not all the way, there's no alliteration in that one. Ballpoint pens come about due to the frustration that comes from the usage of fountain pens. The ink used in fountain pens would take too long to dry. Like I said, we talk about that later, and the pens needed to be refilled, which could be messy and tedious. So it's like, you're writing something, it's like you have to sit there and like wave the paper, like I can't fold this yet because I just used my fountain pen, and then the fountain pen's empty. Now I gotta, put some more ink in this, and I will always just randomly, just be wearing white whenever that happens. I know that happens to me at my job. Whenever I have to refill the stamps with ink, it always seems to be on the day that I'm wearing a white shirt, and I only have like one white shirt. So it's like, this is like the chances. What are the chances? But the ballpoint pen was first created in 1888 by a man named John Loud. But he could not perfect the writing aspect of it, among other things, so it didn't really take off at that time. It would be about another 50 years until the ballpoint pen came into regular usage, and it was around World War II, like I said, 50 years later, that led to a spread in the usage because the British Air Force began to use them since they were better at high altitudes than fountain pens. Basically, they went on a search to find, the best pens they could use for their pilots, and then that just kind of spread to everything else, and you realize that it is ballpoints as they go are a pretty functional pen. If you're out camping or something like that, or if you're just a place where I don't know, you don't have all the amenities you would, I guess it does make it easier. Some famous ballpoint pen makers include Bic, Uniball, or Pilot. And these guys also make other types of pens these days now too. And there are other types of inks that we'll talk about, like the gel pen. And gel pens don't have as rich of a history as the standard ink pens that we've been talking about, but the first gel pens were created and sold in Japan and didn't come to America until the 80s. The ink used in gel pens has a higher melting point viscosity, which is why there is a larger spectrum of colors that can be produced with those inks. But ballpoint pens, by contrast, have a low melting point viscosity, and that was actually something that people lauded because it was, one of the reasons, like what we were saying, it's easier to use them is, I guess, because of that viscosity there. The ink, it's different inks for different kinks, I guess. Like I say, different strokes for different folks, different inks for different kinks. And that's pretty much it about ink. And that is how ink happened.
And now it's time for the roundup. And we're gonna round it up.
Ink was created in 2500 BC by both the Egyptians and the Chinese. The first inks were carbon-based, making the black the first ink color. Quill pens started being used in 600 AD. They were used through medieval times and eventually replaced by steel tube pens. Fountain pens come next, and they were the first real pen that had a containable reservoir, making them somewhat portable. Ballpoint pens and gel pens come afterwards and utilize different types of inks, giving people more choices when it comes to writing. Things I didn't know before, and now I know them. Never heard of these things. What are they? Okay. Things I didn't know before. I really only have one that I would say like stuck out to me. I think I know I said some other ones earlier actually in the segment. But yeah, this one I thought it was interesting because it just shows the where we're progressing with, I guess, with technology and stuff. But like the normal way of telling how old ink is cannot be used on gel pens due to their chemical makeup. Maybe it has something to do with that high melting point viscosity they were talking about. Like the way we can tell what types of ink and how old some documents are from like hundreds of years ago, they can't do it with that type of pen, with that type of ink. And if the framers, so basically if the framers of the Constitution used gel pens, we would have no idea what kind of ink they use. We probably think they were aliens or something like that. And when I read that, I was just like, that's interesting, because you never think about the fact that, I don't know, it's like we're doing something completely different. If you know what I mean, if we're making something now that they can't even age, it'd be like if we're growing different trees now, and they're like, yeah, we don't, the whole ring thing, we don't really know how that works anymore. It's a different tree, we don't know how old it is. We're making ink that we can't even date. We can't even can't even figure out how. I just don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. That's about it. I would say the other one I think that I did say was the fact that knowing that the reason the standard ink color is black is because basically humans, our first writing tools come from fire and carbon-based inks, and it made a black color, and it just so like I said, that's kind of why I started this podcast, because it's like you wonder, how did that happen? How is it that everything for the most part, like I said, from ink is black is the standard, and it is because of just the evolution of humanity. And you would think that's I don't know, you wouldn't think it's that deep, and it's also like that simple at the same time. I don't know, but that's pretty much it for the things I didn't know before. All right, that's been another episode of How Did That Happen? A lot of interesting things we learned about ink. Like I said, I'm gonna try to get back on the regular posting. I have actually been looking for some new podcasts to listen to, so if anybody has anything interesting out there they want to slide my way, that's fine. I'll tell you guys the ones I'm listening to right now. They're pretty simple. I'm listening to Bertcast, listening to Chrissy Chaos. Let's see what else I'm listening to. I'm listening to Hey Babe. Of course, the JRE Experience, or the Joe Rogan Experience. You can't say the JRE. That's like two experiences. But yeah, I mean, I was scrolling through my podcast, and I was like, looking a little dry. There's so many podcasts out there, myself included, that it's hard to find a good one these days. So if you got one that you're loving, I would love for you to post it on the Twitter page and then let me take a listen. But besides that, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for pressing play.
The holidays start here at Baker's, with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.